just give me your name and a hobby or something that you like to do in your free time. It can be football, it doesn't have to be. I know that you have many hobbies that overlap with my hobbies, so.
So my name is Hunter McCants, and I'd say one of my more recent hobbies is playing video games.
Brilliant.
That's it.
Like, what kind of video games, by the way?
Lego video games. I'm trying to 100% the majority of them, other than the few that I'm. Yeah, so when I was off recovering, I managed 100% Lego Lord of the Rings, Lego Indiana Jones nearly done, Lego Batman 1, and Lego something else. But I've already played Marvel Super Heroes 1 and 2, and something. Oh, Jurassic World as well. 'Cause I'm a massive dinosaur fan, so had to get that one. Even though it was the worst one, it was the most boring.
So sorry, that's not some of it should be.
No, it should be the best one. It's terrible gameplay.
Tell me how you got into playing football and when you started and the origins.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. Well, like obviously I knew this was coming up. I'm trying to think of good things to talk about being from here, from Northern Ireland. But trying to think back, I think the first thing that kind of brought me into football was my family. So my dad is a big football fan. Ironically and sadly that he is he's a very sad man. He supports Queen's Park Rangers, so he has known suffering his whole life, and he wanted to project and bring his children into his suffering. And my sister and I thought it was hilarious, and we were too stubborn to ever join a team that and support a team that is so poor. So me being the oldest, I chose Chelsea to support because my cousins are big supporters of Chelsea, and my cousin and I were very close in age, and I wanted to kind of be him and emulate him in any kind of way. So we kind of built this rapport, and I became a Chelsea fan. And my sister, as she grew older, was like, screw dad and screw you, I'm going to be a Manchester United fan. So our family is filled with strife, and it always has been. But mainly it's hard because my dad loves football, he loves playing it, he loves watching it, and every Thursday evening or Monday evening, depending on the year, he would go with my uncle and play football, indoor football, at a local school. And my cousin and I and some of the other kids would go and sit in the sidelines and watch the adults play football after school, and it would always be entertaining to watch middle-aged men at that point in time injure themselves over indoor football, which is quite embarrassing. And it became a real formation of my childhood and my relationship with my dad at that point in time. And from there, I wanted to always play football, be a footballer, support the team, and that was kind of like my introduction.
Okay, wait, I have a quick question here.
Yeah.
I'm going to be like super basic, by the way, about Northern Irish football because I actually don't know a lot about
Okay.
Northern Irish football. There were no teams in Northern Ireland that you wanted to support?
That's a tricky question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I didn't know when I wanted to get into the Northern Irish aspect of things because, like as you said, I'm the only person that's kind of from outside, like mainland UK. Football in Northern Ireland is a very, very rough subject. So my whole family's Catholic. I was raised Catholic. I did my communion, my confirmation, with my Catholic friends. But I also was raised in an integrated environment and went to integrated schools, which makes up about shy of 10% of schools in Northern Ireland. Your parents have to want to put you forward for integrated education, and they're they're specialty schools, so integrated schools mean you can be accepted no matter of race, religion, creed, sexuality, gender, religious status, educational status. There's no exams to sit to get into secondary school. You're accepted off of whatever basis it is. It's a free-for-all, and anybody can go to an integrated school. And it's my parents found incredibly important when raising kids after they learned to teach in England and they saw how the schools work there coming back home and saw the divide between Catholic and Protestant education. They were like, we want better for our kids, we want them to have a full range of accessibility to sports, to religious aspects, to education, to friendship groups, to communities and cultures outside of our own. And that's where being Catholic comes to like an issue with sport. So usually when you're Catholic in Ireland, you're raised to play Gaelic, you're raised to play hurling, like camogie, so like a lot of traditional Catholic sports. And if you're Protestant, you play rugby, you play football, so to be a Catholic and to play football on a team, you'd be filled with a team with Protestants or people you don't know or probably don't go to school with. Thankfully, I did go to school with some of mine because I was in integrated school, which is a massive benefit. And I was on the school team because we had a sort of mix of mixed religious people, and it was always, so I got to play every sport under the sun. There was nothing that was ever hidden from me or denied access to. So I was the captain of our football team, our rugby team, our hockey team, our netball team. Did athletics. I did every sport on the sun because I loved it so much. And so yeah, but I went outside of school. My dad would have to drive me and my sister like to the other side of town to be part of the Protestant team. It was local, and I had one other Catholic friend that went to a football team. The rest were all Protestant girls who went to the local Protestant school, the Protestant academy. So they were very, they could be quite harsh. They're quite like othering at times, and that was like a real kind of barrier to me wanting to play football outside of school because you didn't have that immediate like family community feel like we used to, like when we were in school. It was like kind of like already a barrier to an already difficult sport to get into, being raised female on female teams, and it caused a lot of like strife. And so my sister and I played for years, and we won a couple of things, but it it put a big dampener on like my attitude towards teams outside of school and school activities, and even more like locally, like recently, like in the place I used to go play football with the local team, there was a local police officer who helps train his kids in part of the team, and last month, what is known to be a local terrorist group, gunned down him in front of his kid, in front of the whole football team, and because he's Protestant teaching football to kids and he's also a police officer, it was local to known to be like a national terrorist group. So it's still a very tough subject to be to do something that's outside of your religious expectations and your community. It's definitely trying, and then she had layers in of being trans and being queer. It's like you're asking for it almost, and so that's probably why later in life I haven't really found the space to embrace my love of sports and team tasks and stuff like that, and football especially. So the thing with supporting teams in Northern Ireland, if you support the Northern Irish team, which is just the Northern Ireland team, you're known to be Protestant, and if you support the Irish team, which is the Ireland team, you're known to be Catholic because the Nationalists versus the Unionists. If you support it because you support Northern Ireland as a country, you're supporting it being separate from the rest of the country. It's a Protestant Unionist divide, and then if you then support Ireland's team, you see Ireland as a whole, including the 6 counties of Northern Ireland. You're known as a nationalist or Catholic person.
A lot of the people I've talked to, they've had difficulties with teams specifically because they at the time were trying to get into girls or women's teams, but
yeah.
There's again like it's actually more of there's a religious component to this.
Yeah.
That is.
Once you get there's a first thing, and it's religion. It always is Northern Ireland. The first thing everybody thinks about or talks about or assumes is religion. It's the very first thing. Even when you introduce yourself with your name, it's religion.
Right. And okay, you have kind of answered the question now, because I was going to be like, that actually affects, I guess, that from the sounds of things, that affected more your ability to access football than.
Yeah, like definitely at times it absolutely did, and it's because like, you know, my family were so integrated in lots of different communities with lots of different friends, and because my parents embraced the integrated attitude and ethos of our schools and just in our lives, that they have friends from lots of different community backgrounds, and my dad's always played football with lots of different people, so he knew like coaches and stuff, and I'd go to summer camps every summer and do every football activity I possibly could underneath the sun, and it was fine. But yeah, specifically joining like women's teams or girls teams or teenagers teams, like it was just, you definitely felt like an outsider, absolutely an outsider, because you didn't go to the same school, you didn't have the same upbringing, and they treated you differently because you were not the same for those reasons originally. And then you got it in the extra context of also you're really weird, like why do you look like a boy, or why do you act different, or why are you like so quiet, or whatever it may be. And yeah, there was always an othering that started with religion, then just added on the layers after realizing that there was more to me than maybe even being female at that point in time.
Wow.
Yeah.
just need to get that out first. There's a lot there, wow. But it's interesting, of course, like a lot of the political aspect of sports that I have spoken about, of course, is about transness, and we will get into that. But it's also been about women's accessibility in football, which it feels like football pretends to be depoliticized, but obviously to anybody who hasn't got access to it in the same way knows that is not the case.
Yeah.
And also to anybody who thinks for more than half a second, because it's like an international, like,
Yeah.
it's a global, like, coming like phenomenon of like several billion people watching the World Cup, which is a bonkers number that I don't think any of us can properly comprehend, right? But here, that politics is more to the fore, but specifically, as you said, with religion. I'm probably going to come to the question, I promise. So, like, does it also feel like there is another political component to it that is about, like, women's accessibility in sports? And also, like, because you mentioned you've done a lot of different sports, was there like a difference to how, like, that access felt in, at the time, would have been girl spaces? Like, were there certain sports where it was like, oh, okay, you should be able to play that as a girl? Or, like, were there others where they were like, oh no, those are boys' sports for the boys? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I feel like the real difference I find playing football, like, outside of school, because I did try a couple of different teams. So I played, like, on a hockey team outside of school, rugby team outside of school, football teams, Gaelic teams. So, like, I had a broad enough experience with different teams. The main difference I found with playing football compared to the rest was the investment in money and time. By far, compared to the rest, the teams were shabbily put together. They had coaches of just people's dads who had time. If you needed a lift to, like, a different county to play, a Saturday or Sunday match, you'd be looking for mums, dads to volunteer. There'd be no buses. You'd have to pay £3 minimum to get onto the pitch each day. You had to get a minimum of certain girls onto the pitch to even pay for the pitch. Bring your own water, bring your own food. It was very much do it yourself or it won't be done. Whereas the difference with the rugby team and the hockey team, because they were Protestant owned, they were partially Protestant owned, but also, like, Catholic ran, so you had this funnel of money because they had already, like, built up, like, community relations. So we had, like, our full, like, rugby pitch and rugby team out here, and same with hockey. Like, the school, the academy, which is, like, virtually like the Protestant grammar school out here, is known to be the top of the league virtually for hockey, and so there was also, like, barriers to those where it was more just like, if you couldn't be good enough, then why are you even coming to practice? Whereas football was always like, we want everybody here. We want you here because this is the only opportunity you have. There's one team, and it always was, and it was, yes, for the girls, there was never a problem with, like, the boys didn't have, but the boys always had more money, more funding, more people, more time, and I think that was the main issue I always ran into, was it just, yeah, it felt like thrown together because people wanted it so much, but nobody else cared to do it than people who wanted it, and it suffered from it an awful lot too.
I have maybe a stupid question, so I just, does that have to do with football is related to being, like, very English, or do you know any? If you don't know, it's also
yeah, no. I think it is. I think they do see it as something that was brought here rather than made here, because, like, Gaelic and hurling originated from Ireland, whereas, like, football, like, yeah, it's an English sport. It's got English fans. It does inherently bring a lot of British heritage to a country that has a lot of rough patches with British heritage, to say the least. Yeah. So that would definitely be the main factor.
Do you, because I really like underdogs, so do you prefer like teams that are more sure to win, or do you like watching teams that usually lose?
I know I genuinely don't mind. Like usually, yeah, I chose Chelsea when I was like 5, and I commit. I'm not the person that's not going to commit whether they're winning or losing. I'm committing to the team because that's what my dad is like with his, and his have never won in his life virtually. So we gotta commit. So yeah, my sister and I would probably have the odd fight when we were younger about who was better because like Man United and Chelsea would be up in the top 3 for long periods of time, so it'd always be like a little bit of strife. But no, I don't really care. I'm not like there to watch people suffer, and I'm not there to like make people feel bad if their team loses. I think there's a lot of toxicity in that. But yeah, no, I support the teams because I chose that one when I was younger, and then the other teams I would support would be like Bayern Munich, and like I like the German team because they're very hot. And they're very good at football, so I like watching them play. So if I'm being honest, that's why. My dad was raised Catholic too. My grandmother was very, very religious, Catholic, devout Catholic woman, and like his dad wasn't very around very much. So like it was him, and he has 6 other siblings. So and he's the youngest boy and second youngest overall. So like you'd think like their taste would get passed down to him or something, but no, and like they always played football together. It was never a thing that they were bullied for. Like they grew up in council housing, so all the kids would just go outside in the one patch of grass they had and just play football because that's all they had to do. So that's just kind of where he started. So I don't actually know where he got that team out of. But yeah, they always grew up playing football, so that was always what it was.
I mean, I guess the thing about football, like, yeah, it has a certain Englishness to it.
Yeah.
Like it does, despite I was gonna say despite the fact that the English team sucks, but actually they've been doing quite well in like the last couple of years.
My sister loves it. That's another reason I think she's a Protestant. She's a massive English team supporter, especially the women's though. She absolutely loves it. Like every single Sunday, my dad will sit down and watch the men's football, and she'll watch the women's football, and they'll swap each other's scores and see how everybody's doing. And I'm like, my mum's favorite, like least favorite day of the week is a Sunday. She hates it. There's one week there was like 9 matches the other week, and she was like, "Just can I come to your house?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine."
Like yeah, because I guess the thing about football is that like all you really need is a ball.
Yeah, it's so simple. Like I think that's what makes it such a unifying sport compared to a lot of other things. You don't need any kind of gear, any kind of sticks, any kind of training really. All you need is something you can use for goalposts, even like your hoodie or t-shirt you can pop down the ground, and some form of a ball. It doesn't even have to be a football, it could be literally any ball. And you can play it with 2 people, 1 person. And there's so few sports you could say that about, genuinely. There's no money that really needs to be invested in football to play it, and there's virtually no other sport under the sun you could say that about.
Yeah.
Like there's always a day where like everybody in primary school, like there was always like people that would be in charge each day or each week to which ball who was bringing in their ball for like to play during break times, and like there'd always be the day where like the ball would go over the wall. So ironically enough, I actually didn't tell you this. In my bedroom, if you look out my window upstairs, you will look out into my primary school where I used to play football every single day. You can literally see it. It's compared, my primary school's no longer there anymore. It's like I finally got a new building after nearly 30 years. So it's over by my secondary school now. So it's like its own very first original integrated campus, first of its kind. So yeah, you'll actually be able to see where I play football all the time. You'll see kind of our goalpost just half hanging there up against the wall. So anytime we kind of kick a ball got kicked over the wall, it would ironically now be in my back garden. The school didn't have balls for you to have, so you just have to make shift, like whether it was with an empty bottle, a tennis ball, like literally anything under the sun. Like even just someone's like school jumper, I'm like, you can kick it, it's going somewhere, that's it.
You're playing football.
You're playing football.
You've done it.
Yeah.
I love there's a certain like a narrative fulfillment.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, same. I moved in here, I was like, "Mom, you did not tell me." And she's like, "I thought you knew." I was like, "No."
You've collected the spirit of all the balls from the past.
Yeah, exactly. I always hand them back.
So you had access to faster race sports. First question actually is like, did you have a favorite, or was it just like super into them all? Or
that's a good question. So definitely when I was younger, like in primary school and stuff, football was definitely my favorite. I did want to grow up and be a footballer. That was definitely like one of the career goals. until obviously someone broke to me that you couldn't be a footballer if you were a girl, and I was like, back to the drawing board, I guess, because that's what the way that was in 2006 or whatever it may be.
Become a boy.
Yeah. Oh, nobody told me that could happen, unfortunately. But yeah, so definitely, like in primary school, it was definitely football. I did summer camps, I did youth clubs, I did like break times, lunch times, like everything. And then as I got older, I got access to more and more. Because my secondary school had like more teams and stuff. I would say it was kind of depending on like the weather and like my mood, which one was the favorite. It was definitely still between soccer and hockey. I loved hockey an awful lot. It's quite funny because I was a goalkeeper, usually in both. And I don't know if you know, but in hockey you have to wear a lot of gear. So I was literally just a walking mummy. And but I was also the captain of the team on both, so it just makes a lot of sense. But I was a person that could be trusted apparently. But I love both of those sports an awful lot. But I've always found team sports to be my preference. I I don't really have a lot of time or patience for single like player sports. I just find it hard to like manage my own expectations and drive. Whereas with a team, I can always find myself raring to go and supporting each other and being in it together. I think that was always I mean enjoyment piece for myself anyway. Team sports.
I think you and I are very alike in that. I find single people sports.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
my PE teachers knew I'd do anything, so I did shot put, I did javelin, I did running, I did everything. So like I'd always have to go to like the athletics, and I'm like sitting here by myself, like I don't want to do a stupid ball. I'm bored. There's nobody here to do this with. Whereas my sister, she did shot put, and she was 7th in Ireland at age 13. So
Awesome. I actually also used to play hockey. I was not a goalie though.
I loved it. I love hockey so much.
I enjoyed hockey. I was never particularly good at it. Although I did once sprain a boy's ankle by like hitting the ball at it.
Easily done. Yeah, my best friend Jenna, she's on a local like competitive hockey team, and she does really really well. Every time I see her, she goes with a black eye or finger, and I'm like, Janice, please. This is why I was a keeper, so at least I minimize the injuries. Like, you know, nothing's get past those paddings. It's fine.
My other question here is, I can't remember if I asked this before, but but it was just interesting that you like had this full array of things. And I did ask you like whether there was like support for the girls' football versus the boys' football, but in general, was there? Did I say this? I feel like I did ask if there was a gendering of the sports. I can't remember if I asked this before.
No.
Okay, was there like a preferred gendering of the sports, or like being like, because it sounds like you had pretty much access to all of them, or was there things where like you'd be like technically there's access, but teachers are telling me that I ought to be doing these things versus these things, or
so the way it worked, like in secondary school anyway, in my school was, if you were a girl, female presenting, then you would be doing PE with the girls, and if you're a boy or a male presenting, you'd be doing like football, like teams with PE with the boys. Yeah, so in 120 kids, you'll get an hour and a half a week of PE, and usually in the winter we do stuff that's inside, in the summer you do stuff that's outside. And the boys did that, but the boys had a different schedule than the girls of like what they'd be offered to do. So they'd play more Gaelic, they'd play more football, they'd play rugby way more. They played a lot more contact sports. We'd have access as like if you're on the girls like side, you'd have access to the sports. You'd have access usually outside of your usual PE routine. Like that contact sports, we'd have like, let's say we did 4 weeks of tennis, because we're lucky enough to have tennis courts in our new school. So we'd have like 2 to 4 weeks of tennis maybe in the summer, and we'd have maybe 2 weeks of rugby, and it would be like tag rugby, it wouldn't be contact rugby. And we'd have maybe 2 weeks of football, because my teacher knew that all people were going to be playing football, because the girls are like contact sport, they'll just sit there and complain, especially if it's wet outside. Hockey, you might get 4 weeks of it because more people would play. And like the sport, netball, you probably get 4 to 6 weeks of it because it's indoors, and a lot more people will play because you can do team rotations, because you get to sit down a lot more because you only have one court. So it's all literally about how many people you could actually get into your PE kits and actually play the sport. Whereas boys, no matter what, they bring their PE kits, they get into them, they go outside, whether it's mucky, whether it's sunny, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, hailing, there's no complaints, they'll get on with it majority of the time. And the PE teacher will not get them get away with it, whereas the girls, there's just sometimes, especially if you're hitting like period times, like you could just use any excuse under the sun, and girls just like, I don't want to do it, which is completely fair. It's completely fair, but it also means a lot of us that wanted to play the sports and use up that time and actually learn some new skills, there was nothing for you. You just had to get on with it. And there's points in time that like I would be like one of the more athletic people like in the group that I was placed in for like PE periods, and my teacher, remember we were playing Gaelic one time outside, and I was just soloing the ball and keeping it in my hands and like doing it like I should, from one end, like our goalpost, to the other, and scoring an actual goal with not one person touch or getting the ball off me. I did that a couple of times in a row, like giggling to myself because they were all so bad. And my teacher was like, I'm playing for the other team now, I want you to sit out. And I was, miss, that's literally not fair. Like, it's my turn. Like, just because they're bad, I have to sit out. And she was like, well, I'm going to handicap you then. I'm playing because that's not fair. I'm like, it's not about winning or losing. You're supposed to learn how to play it. Like, just because I already kind of know, like, that's not fair. She used to do this to me all the time because I was from the more athletic one. She was like, you're sitting out, or you're sitting with a team that's not as good. I'm like, I'm fine to show them, but why am I getting picked on? Like, that's not fair. Whereas then the expectation was when we actually had teams that needed to go out to competitive, like, you know, sports outside of school, like, we'd have to, like, go against other schools. You know, she'd make me the captain or, like, make me a more prominent spot. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but when it's PE time, I'm not allowed to do that. She's like, yeah, because they're going to make it harder for them to play at all. They don't even want to play. And I'm like, that's not fair. So be it all the time. She used to always join the other team and used to drive me mad. I loved her though. She was a great teacher. She was so much fun. She has a real soft spot in my heart, and like she's good friends with my parents and stuff too. She's lovely, but yeah, she had to put up with so much stuff. Like the girls in my class were not easy to deal with by any means. Even on my teams, when we had actual teams, like the dynamics, like you know yourself, like girls can be bitchy and catty, and especially when there's like competitiveness and stuff too. So some of us are there because we wanted to be in a team, we wanted the team to succeed. Some of us are there to win a trophy and to be the player of the match, and you're like, that's not conducive to everybody doing well. But yeah, it was always fun though. But yeah, I always laughing about her playing, joining the other teams to help them.
I love that. It's also, just as a note, it's very interesting that you were at an integrated school in so many things, but then like sports was still segregated.
Yeah, and the thing was like as like I like grew up through my school, like we became known as a very queer and trans friendly school because so many other schools, especially grammar schools and like religious schools, like if you were in any way different, never mind trans and openly queer, you were just screwed. Like, good luck getting anything done, getting getting hassled by staff or my students. Like there was always going to be something, so we became basically like a safe haven for a lot of kids who transferred, and friends that I now have did that to my school, and but the thing was that a lot of them, because you're trans, because you're not happy with your body, because of dysphoria, because of you just have no interest in sports, if you're just more an artsy person or a musical person, they just did not partake in sports. And my school was decent. They were like, we're not going to force you, even though legally we have to have you do sports for a certain amount of time if you're under 16. We're not going to force you. We're going to give you access to disabled bathrooms or staff bathrooms if you want to get changed or wherever, or use the bathroom. But, we're not going to make you do this sports or PE, and we wouldn't even know what team to put you in if we could. So a lot of trans people in my school just didn't do any kind of sport. And I knew, like, part of me knew that I maybe wasn't cis, but I hadn't really got the language or the thoughts together yet. Because by the time I was 12, I knew I definitely wasn't straight. But there was no way I was telling anybody that, especially if I wanted access to like, the girls' changing rooms. Are you joking me? Like, with the idea that I might find any of the other girls attractive, like, there's no way I would have survived. Never mind being on any of the teams. Like, it would not have flown by. And it wouldn't have been the staff that had a problem. It would have been everybody else, because staff knew me since I grew up, because my parents taught there. So they knew me since I was literally born. So yeah, that was, it is interesting. We were always divided by gender, but there were certain days of the year, like sports day, we'd all come together and do some things. We'd play rounders together, or we'd do like circuits together, and that would be the only times we'd have a unisex or intersex kind of play of any kind of sport at all, which is weird because when I was outside of school I did especially when I was younger, I did rugby with the boys. I was 20 girl with the boys too. It's quite funny though. But yeah, and that was I think the only time I was around a boys team since. Yeah, outside of school. That was the only experience I had on a boys team was on the rugby team. And I went on for like a year or two. But I was only like 7.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna ask that actually. Well, not ask that. I was gonna ask whether you wanted to play with any other boys' teams or if you wanted to.
Yeah, I just wanted to play, and there was no access to anything else. Like it sucked because like the boys would always do so well. They'd win lots of awards. They'd go through lots of like games. The thing was like, ultimately it comes down to, the more you win, the more you get to play. And the girls never had time to train. They never had a lot of interest. They never had money. They never had coaches, or if we did, it was rare. And because of that, we were not competitive compared to the other teams. So we got to play so much less, which also meant we were less good because we didn't get a chance to play. So the only times we did end up winning, it was either by a fluke, so that some of the bigger teams couldn't attend, and we made it through the next round, which was awesome. We had so much fun, even though we did terribly the next time. Even I was not on my game and could not get myself together from just the pressure of it, because we've never gotten that far. And the other time we did well was we were just in great form. We had a good team together. It was a good day. We were melding well together, and we ended up winning. And then it turned out we had tied with another team, and both the teams were like, can we not just both take first place and split it? Like, we only have this many first medals and this many second medals, and we have one trophy. We don't know what to do with this scenario. And our teacher, I'll never forgive her for this, even though I love her, she said, it'll be fine, we'll do penalties. She knew how bad we were at penalties, and I was the only person on that team that could shoot a penalty. Our keeper is great. Could anybody shoot a penalty other than me? No. Could I go more than once? No. Did we lose on penalties? Yes! Of course we lost on penalties, so we had to take second place home. The only time we ever got close to first. I never forget her for that, because we should have taken first, miss. We never let her live it down on the bus homework, miss, we had first. She was, well, you have to practice the penalties then for next time. But that was the last time I think I could ever play a sport, because I was 15, 16. And yeah, she was like, if you want to play sports, I'll have time for you. But let's be honest, when you start doing levels, you'll realize your workload and you won't have time for it. And she was right. It's just the way it works, and it's the way it happens. But yeah. Yeah. I still have all my collection of medals though and everything. It's in my parents' house.
I hope, just let me know if I'm putting words in your mouth, or if you're like, no, it's not like that at all. But it feels a bit like a self-fulfilling prophecy that like the boys team will get more support and more attention, and therefore they'll be, and not just the boys team, but like boys socially and in society, because one school could try as hard as it wants to like make girls interested in sports, but if everything around it is going like, actually it's not girl-like to play a sport, it's not attractive for girls to play a sport, it's not, I don't know, it's not in your interest to play sports, and you're not going to use it for anything, then like, I mean, I obviously don't know how hard the school did or did not try, but like, then one school might not really be able to make a difference anyway. I don't know if there's like a self-fulfilling prophecy in the fact that the girls' teams were not necessarily doing so well. Yeah,
like it definitely feels that way. There's definitely evidence towards that. I think one thing that doesn't help is to add to like the kind of religious element also is that the way integrated schools work in Northern Ireland is they don't actually get funded by any of the education boards. They are self-funded schools, so the money we have it's put towards necessities and things that will generate more income, more pupils, like better results and stuff, because that's just how school has to work at the end of the day. Whereas the academies, the grammar schools, the religious schools have so much historical backing, they can buy as many coaches as they want, as much gear, new kits, everything. Like we were literally wearing boys' hand-me-downs, unwashed kits to our away matches. Literally, because some kids couldn't afford the full school PE kit. So we had to wear matching stuff or else you wouldn't be able to play. Like that's just how it worked. Same with like the hockey stuff and everything else. It was always like hand-me-downs or random stuff. that couldn't be replaced. Like, there was times where we were supposed to like do things and like we could only put in for indoor soccer a lot of the time because outdoor you wouldn't get enough people to do it, or we didn't have the weather or whatever it may be. There was times where we were supposed to play a certain sport or practice it and the weather was bad, so we were rained off and we had to come inside and just literally put on a Zumba class. A Zumba class. I will never live down the fact we had to do Zumba for 2 weeks. So like there's definitely an element of we don't have the money and the funding, and also we don't have like the time or effort to make girls want to do things that boys always want to do and are expected to do and do well at or better at, and it definitely feels there's definitely evidence towards some sort of stuff like prophecy in that sense.
Okay, yeah, and what you were saying at the beginning, like the religious component comes first.
Trickles down. It's always here in the background.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame that integrated schools aren't supported more. I assume.
Like, I'm a part of a major group, like a volunteering group we've been working our butt off. Especially, we're called the integrated alumni, so all of us have went to integrated schools or are a part of it some way, even if they're parents of kids and stuff. And we've done a lot of work recently for it. So we used to be at 6%, but now nearly on 10% of kids going to integrated schools in Northern Ireland, which is great. And we're building more and we're changing more schools into integrated schools, because at the same time we have so many tiny like country schools that are like single religion, and there's multiple of them that are constantly hemorrhaging money or having to like double down and do like 3 years into one class because there's not enough pupils. Whereas if you amalgamated them all into one big school, you'd have better funding, better education, better everything. So we make them into integrated schools. So we're trying to fund schools to turn themselves integrated, and that's a parental choice. You parents can vote to turn their schools into integrated schools, which is what we're trying to promote at the moment. So it's working really well. And they're doing great things. So it's great. It's great. It's good things on the horizon, at the very least. But yeah, we're still all entirely self-funded or funded by private like backers, basically fundraisers, and for events that we put together, kind of ourselves with the Integrated Education Fund.
Well, it seems like there's a lot happening just in like, I mean, because like you left school
in 2017.
Yeah, so like it seems like there's a lot happening just in a few short years.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the momentum and we have the backing, and we're working very, very hard. So it's good.
Around the team that you were a part of outside of school, that they were not necessarily the nicest.
Yeah.
But and that there was an element of that was again like religious, and then an element of it that was also like, and then one cannot hide one's neurodivergencies from teenagers, and one cannot often it seems like other people, like the people who are bullying you, are the first to notice when you're not gender conforming.
And I'm just like, what are you even talking about? I'm doing exactly what you're doing. And they're like, no, you're not. And you're just like, what are you talking about? And then you just become so paranoid and try to lean so heavily into the opposite thing. And you're like, I don't know, is this what they want? I don't want to do it.
Am I girl? Am I doing girl? Am I girl? What's the hell?
So I thought we were all just here to play football. I don't understand. Yeah.
We're wearing the same kit, playing football. Like,
yeah.
How do you play football? Like
honestly, my dad forced me to stay on that team because I hated it. I complained so much. I didn't trust any of my team members. I didn't care about any of them virtually at all. There was one person I could call my friend on that, and that was it. And they were a friend from school. And they're actually also queer. So that makes sense. Yeah, whereas everybody else, they were just like, oh, thank God, like they're here, like, you can like be in nets, because that's one place we need filled. And that was it all the time. I was constantly forced into being a goalkeeper. Even though I was kind of there to try and get out of like that little box that I was put in, because as the only girl playing boys football throughout primary school, you're forced into being a goalkeeper, because no boy wants to be a goalkeeper. The girl's going to be the goalkeeper. Did I complain? No. Did I become an amazing goalkeeper? Absolutely. Did I win awards for it? Sure I did. And did I just love doing it because I was involved in sport? I loved doing it with a community that I felt a bit more a part of than the rest. When girls were playing something that I didn't even know what they were playing, because I genuinely wasn't a part of it. I don't know what they would play during break time other than football. What else could you possibly be doing? So yeah, like that was always because I wanted more experience. I wanted to be a defender. I wanted to get my activity levels up, and because I know I had the ability to do more. Because I was like, I played lots of different positions in different sports, so I had lots of experience and a versatility of skill. And they were like, no, screw you. You're gonna be the keeper, and it's all we need you here for. And I was like, great. So I just had to put up with it the whole time. Yeah, and I just had to just keep going. My dad forced me to do it. He hates when I quit things. And when you're ADD, you quit things all the time. So you take a notion, you start doing it, and you're like, I don't like this, and you quit. So I was known as the quitter and the whiner child, because, yeah, you quit everything. I hate everything, sure. Um, yeah. Whereas, like, I wasn't, like, misrepresenting in any way in that instance or anything like that. Like, I had long hair until I was 16, even though I wanted to cut short from when I was about 10. And my mom was like, no, you don't know how to take care of yourself. You have really curly hair. It's going to frizz up. No, you're going to make me do it. Take care of it. It's going to become matted. And this is just always an excuse. And it was always from the hairdresser told her this, even though the hairdresser didn't know what my hair was going to do. And so she refused to ever let me do it. And I hated wearing it down because I hated anything touching my neck. Like, I didn't realize it was also a sensory thing as well as a dysphoria thing. So I was wearing a hair bubble all the time, no matter what, other than at night. So like, I don't know what it was, like it was. There was always something that was just like I tried to make friends with them, and like I was like, oh, my dad's driving us to one of the Sunday matches. Like, who wants to jump in my dad's car with me? None of them did, and there was one girl arrived late and had to get into my dad's car, and I was like, awesome. And you just feel like, what have I done wrong? Like, what is it that's so different about me? And you never know. They're so clicky, they would never ever tell you, and they put on this like fake kind of smile at the end up, and yeah, it was rotten. I just hated being a part of that, and that team sucked. So I was so grateful to have an actual like, team in school that I could rely on and that we got along well with. Even if it was dramatic at times, it was fun.
It's a shame that the kind of thing that can put somebody off, like it, like make somebody think that they don't like the sport or that they're
Yeah.
not cut out for a
And it
sport.
made me feel like I was bad, like because of the pressure of me being the keeper, not wanting to do it, and anytime anything went in or there was a goal scored, the whole team, like you could feel the glares, the daggers, and so anytime I'm doing like a goal kick, and I'm pretty good at goal kicks. Could I kick a ball to save my life? No, no, I could not. Did it always go out or hit someone in the head? Yes. It was so embarrassing. I hated it, and it just sucked because I was like, I know I'm better than this, but I'm letting them get to me, and it never got better, ever.
I mean, it's not a place to get better.
No, I'm glad. Yeah, no, I didn't stick around any longer than that. Neither did my sister. I don't think. What she said for like maybe like another season, but she was in a different team because she's 3 years younger than me. So
So just two things. One, since then you haven't been on a team, or like since finishing school you haven't been on a team, or
no, but I have played football once in the last year.
okay, I'm gonna ask you about that in a second. The other thing is that I'm gonna go way back to when you were playing goalie on a boys team.
So yeah, in primary 7, I had a teacher who found herself. She thought of herself very highly. She was a delightful, blonde young mother of one, and delightful, probably young budding feminist. In her own words, I'd probably say, although she probably wouldn't have called herself that at the time. But she saw that I was the only girl on the team, and that at lunchtime or break time, and that I was also the person that ever played like nets, ever. Like, yeah, the other team would have like maybe somebody, but it would always switch around, or if they hit anybody in nets, it would usually be like a roaming goalie. And I never got to be a roaming goalie. Not that I cared, but did she took it upon herself to try and change up the teams and make sure that I was out and somebody else was in the nets? Yes. Did she get the blame for this? No, of course not, because what child's going to blame the teacher for doing this? They'll blame me. So, did I get absolutely blasted and blamed and crapped upon by every boy on my bloody class for them having to share keeper duties? And she would be like, they'd be like, Miss, can somebody else please be keeper today? And she'd be like, and then she'd run past and she'd choose a random boy, and you're just like, that's worse. Like, you just at least ask them, and at the end point, I got so fed up. I was like, I'm gonna go back in. Like, there's no point. So I just went back in, and she tried to make a point of it, and we're just like, it's fine, I want to do it. And she goes, oh, well, if that's what you want. And I'm like, if I ever wanted to go out, there's no point now. You've ruined the opportunity. Made them all hate it so much, forced into it. So yeah, I was the only girl who ever played football. It would be a rare occasion if another girl like wanted to join in, and it would be like, oh, I'm having a weird day, I want to try it out, and it doesn't seem too bad. And then they see a ball hurling at them because they were also being kind of forced into goals, of course. They see a ball hurling at them, and they'd be like screaming or in the other direction. You're like, you have to run towards it, and you're like, but it's gonna hurt me. I'm like, not really. It just looks fast. It's not gonna hurt you that much. Like the face, if it hits you in the face, it's gonna be like nummy and kind of burny, but you'll be fine. It's not gonna bruise. And they were like, okay, no, I'm done. We're like, we're okay. So yeah, like, yeah. Other than that, like I was a good keeper. Like I had my own gloves. I got gloves and like kits for Christmas, and yeah, like most of the time I was always a defender or a keeper. Like in schools, there'd be the rare occasion where like, we were playing like during PE. Whereas I was the only person I was literally able to dribble the balls, I have to be the only one something outside the nets or in the defender positions to try and score. And same like at youth clubs sometimes. But yeah, like that was usually the experience in primary school anyway. Just keeper.
It's not like hockey. Like a hockey ball would fucking hurt you.
Oh yeah, like, those things.
Those are bad.
Yeah, we thought Janice like was knocked unconscious. We don't even know how she was knocked unconscious. She was just like, I don't know if I tripped or something hit me. I just woke up and I was in the hospital. I'm like, that makes sense. Hockey.
Yeah, hockey is. I think I might have been a bit too timid in the end for hockey. Like I wasn't ever able to fully like commit to the idea of how much it might hurt me. Whereas with football, I was like one time I was at, I can't remember exactly what it was. It was some kind of camping event with I think either my school or my scouts or whatever. And I was super bored. I wasn't talking with anybody because I had no confidence by then. And I just wandered into a field where some boys who were like a few years older than me and therefore much bigger than me were playing football. And I started playing football with them and they were, to be fair, like super accepting of it. And then I was trying to head the ball and the boy was trying to kick it and he kicked me in the face and knocked me unconscious for a few seconds.
Oh my god.
And like I came to and they were all gathered around me and they were all like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine, because it did not hurt at all.
Yeah, because you're unconscious.
I was unconscious. I was like, it did not hurt, and like it didn't like do anything. Like I got a small nosebleed, and that was like about it. I have a very hardy.
Yeah, I've never had a nosebleed in my life.
Yeah.
So that probably also helps for the whole football to face thing.
Yeah. Anyway, and then they were like, the whole rest of the day, they just treated me as like the coolest person ever. And I was like, this is the best day of my life.
The acceptance I've sought all these years, finally.
All the boys are treating me as the best boy. This means nothing, of course.
No, of course not.
The idea of getting hit in the face with a football, I'm like, whatever. But also, like, there is a part of me that actually, I quite like I like getting a little bit hurt. Like,
it makes me feel strong and powerful, and like I can kind of do anything. It's kind of feel a little bit invincible. It's a really nice part of it. There's no real danger, but like it's fun. I like it.
I like a little bit.
Especially when like a lot of the parts of your life you don't get to ever really feel like that. So yeah, it's a nice kind of atmosphere. Like you're always gonna be able to feel like that. This is just like how I tend to feel. Because I hadn't played football for like quite a few years, and then through this project had the opportunity to play it twice sort of in the last month, and I've just been like, I'm just like, I have so much confidence. I'm just a body. I don't need to think about anything. I'm just on the pitch. I may be a little bit too intense for the level of this playing, but that's okay. I don't know, there's something about it where I'm like, oh, okay, gender is just football. I'm in my body in a way that I generally just am not otherwise. Yes.
I don't know if you're
like, I, literally, when I played football for the first time since I was, 16, it was with my old law firm, and they did, a five-a-side, tournaments that they used to always run before COVID, and this first time since COVID they've done it, and I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome, and I just moved to Oma, so I was like, I'm gonna have to, do my work day and travel up to Belfast to go do this, or work a full work day in Belfast, somehow get changed, drive over to the pitch, and then do it, and I was like, I'm too tired to do a work day in Belfast and then go, because I have to get up at, half 4, half 5 in the morning to get to Belfast for my 8 o'clock start. So I was like, I'll just go up after work. There shouldn't be enough traffic. People usually leave Belfast rather than go into it. So I made it on time, and it was the most fun and the best experience I've ever had. Like what you said literally is putting words in my mouth. Like I was way too intense. I was antagonistic. I was the keeper again, but that time not necessarily because I had to, because I offered to be, and also because I was binding at the time and I knew that I could not run. Like they tried to force me out of nets because I couldn't explain because these are also made up of people across my whole company. So some of the people I knew like worked with already knew I was trans, but I didn't want to be like explaining things to people that I didn't know that they didn't really need to know about me. So they didn't obviously know that I was binary or anything, and they tried to force me out for like literally 2 minutes, and I started to like taste blood in my mouth, and I was like, I'm gonna have to go back, because I forced the guy out. I was like, no, I'm staying in nets, I'm gonna do it. The longer minute, the better I'm gonna get at it as well. Like if you're in one position, you're gonna get better. I was like, really fine, and I've done well so far. I did quite some decent saves and stuff, and then yeah, I started to get way too into it for the level that it was. I started daring people like who are people my bosses, and I was just like, "Come on, Connor, I dare you. Give me the ball. I'd like to see you try and get it past me." Like the whole thing. Like River was behind me. Like, what are you doing? Like I'd literally the only people that were there that had supporters was me. I had River, who does not do sports. Never mind football. I dragged them with me, and I had Fiona and her friend, who's actually a trans woman, and Fiona's a queer woman. So I had 3 trans queer people who are femme turn up to watch the one trans guy play football and nobody else, and I was there being the most antagonistic fuck you could possibly imagine. And the guy, like, he was so bad with me doing this multiple times in a row. He kicked the ball as hard as he could and caught me, in here in the flesh, and then a massive purpley bruise afterwards. And I was like, good shot. He goes, and he was like, and they were like, oh Jesus, Colin, that was wild rough. And I was like, and he was like, here, he dared me, and I was like, you're right, and I don't care because I saved it, bro. Keep going, keep trying. And in the end up, we won the whole tournament, my team. So and they were like, you know what? Because I also managed to shoot a penalty that was so good, they gave me the whole trophy. And they're like, you're keeping that trophy because you're the one who deserves it out of the team. And I was like, I've never been so proud of my life. And that was after 6 or 7 years like playing football, and it was just like coming back home after being away. I'm like, I don't know where this was or what came over me, but it was kind of stupid insane. You just have this gall, this like masculine, like, I dare you, I literally dare you. Like, this is what cis men must feel like every single day of their lives. And it's insane. It's some sort of weird like runner's high. I'm just like, I'm so high after this. And I had so much food, and I drove home on my high, and I was like, babe, no one can touch me, I'm invincible, this is it. And it was great. I had so much fun, and yeah, I just hated it because I was like, I wish I could have done more, because I was binding at the time, and I was so unfit because of it, and in pain, and it sucked, but I got to be keeper, which was always what I always was anyway, and yeah, they were just, I made some stunner saves, and I got to do a cool penalty, and I was pretty proud of myself, and it was great. But yeah, it was so good. They have to.
No fucking wonder that
literally, no wonder they want to change anything. If you feel like this all the time, you're insane. It's like being on cocaine or something.
It is so. I wasn't playing with cis guys. I was playing with grassroots, like women and binary teams, because they'd invited me, and that was very nice of it. Like, it's not a team that I'd want to play on, because I don't want to play on a women and binary team, which we'll get back into that in a second. But like, I was like, oh, okay, I need to press the, because I'm like, I don't want people to think that because I feel like I could get away with it a little bit more with cis men. They'll just be like, you're a bit of a man,
rapscallion,
yeah. Whereas I'm like, I don't want to make like other queer people uncomfortable with me. Like, I'm like, I promise I'm nice.
I swear.
You just met me.
Like there's literally a guy that used to play like on an actual team, and there's people who play like pretty competitively too. And I was just antagonizing looking at the show, and it was so funny. And we honestly just had such good fun. And it definitely made me closer to my colleagues and stuff too. But it wasn't also just cis men, it was like anybody who wanted to play. So we had a group of like maybe 6 or 7 like girls and stuff as well around my age that play. Some of them which I'd never played before ever. They're just like, we thought it'd be fun to come out because we also get beer and food for free afterwards. I'm like, yeah, oh yeah. and we had two of them on my team, and we did so well. Like genuinely, it was great. It was really lovely teamwork and stuff too. But yeah, I'm more important because I'm so good.
And there's something like the masculinity of like having 3 friends coming to support you.
Literally, I was like, I have never felt so powerful all my life. The irony of that as well, like just like 3 femmes who are all queer turn up to support me. Anything they care so little about. I was like, this is what true the queerness is. It's so good. No other person had a single person turn up, and I was like, I have 3, and they're exceptional.
Oh, I love that. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
I wish for you more of these. I wish for us both more.
Yes, everybody deserves it. Everybody should have access to this.
In relation to being a goalie, if you were on a team where you like could go to practice say every week or whatever, would you want to stay as goalie or would you want to like try other positions? Like, do you have a sense of your identity as a football player? I guess.
That's a really good question, because if I was like younger and just playing on the teams that I knew, I'd be fine with either like a keeper or defender position. Whereas now, because I don't kind of know what kind of team I play on, because honestly, at the end of the day, I am honestly scared of playing on a team filled with cis men. It makes me feel like I'm not going to be fast enough, fit enough, strong enough. I feel like maybe a keeper is the only position I could physically play. And even though I know that that's just not true, and that's giving myself like a really bad rap, and just a lot of human beings a bad rap, never mind trans people, I think like there's a very like scared, like anxious part of me that would put myself in that position, because I don't think I'm good enough for any other position against a cis man. And that's probably the only like way I would think about myself in my life. I've never compared myself to cis men like that, like ever, compared to anything else virtually. But yeah, like I'd probably feel most comfortable like in a keeper or defender position. Yeah, even though I definitely want to like try now that I can like freely post top surgery and post like binding for like 5 years, and I embrace like my better posture, my painless body, the body that's mine. Like I would definitely want to be able to like run the pitch and be a midfielder, or even try scoring, because I always envy people who are able to actually like shoot and stuff like that, and use their left foot and the right foot. That's what something I wanted to try and learn how to do. So yeah, I think it would depend on the team I was on, and how well I got along with people, and the strength of character I might hold at that point in time.
If you had like an ideal team set up for you at this moment in time, like if there was just like a smorgasbord of opportunities in front of you, where you could have like any kind of setup, so you could play on the system, like assuming as well that people were not being horrible bigots about any of it. Like there's a men's team that's like trans inclusive. There's a trans only team across genders. There's a trans masc team. There's a women non-binary team. There's any other team that you can. There's a mixed gender team. Like what kind of a ideal setup if we assume that people were not going to be assholes about this?
Yeah, I would probably at this moment in time prefer to either be on a team of like cis and trans male, like a cis like trans inclusive team, or a trans masked team, because those closest match my identity. And also I never really got a chance to be on a team of people that look and feel like me entirely, and that would be a lovely opportunity to have.
Also, by the way, I know that you are a guy. I mentioned them.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
Because,
yeah.
Like those seem to be more of the teams that are popping up.
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
Other versions. I think it comes from, just anecdotally, it seems to come from the fact there are women's teams, and then somebody will come out on the team and they'll be like, "All right, we're gonna be inclusive of you, and we're gonna incorporate that into the title," which I think is very nice.
Yeah.
But it presents those very obvious limitations for those of us who are like, actually, I don't think that's really the space.
I appreciate the attempt though.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the sentiment, and you were very they were very nice when I was like just there, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't ever join those teams. And also, I think for me as well, I would want something that's a bit more competitive. Like even if I'm not necessarily a great player,
Yeah.
I want to actually I want to be allowed to be that intense and
Yeah.
not have to dial it back.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I want it to be expected almost. Like, I want the opportunity, because I'm a very competitive person too. I want everybody's goals for the team to be one in that we want to win this. We want to play the game, we want to play it well, we want to win it. And as much as I have fun playing just general like friendlies and stuff like that, um, for that to always be like that, I'm like, well, it's like, yeah, that's a little bit tiring though, like, because everybody gets to have the choice of friendlies and competitive stuff. Why do we have to stick with friendlies, kind of thing?
Like so, there was an all transmas team that played in London
Yeah.
in either late March or early April against a system.
Yeah, because it was for Trans Day
of
Visibility.
Yeah, exactly.
It's 31st March, yeah.
31st of March. So
Yeah.
it was
It's
actually.
the day after my birthday, so I always remember.
Yeah, there we go. Also, it was Trans Day Visibility. I'm like, of course, it's on 31st of March. It's just every year. It's fine. We don't need time permanency
No.
either. Yeah, I want to know what you. I guess I want to know, but like this is very very vague, and you might have no thoughts whatsoever. But like, how did you perhaps feel about it, hearing about it, and like the fact that this seems to be something that very recently has sort of started as a conversation. I know that from here to London is quite far,
Yeah.
comparatively, and like I've asked this question otherwise of people who are based in England, so
Yeah.
it's a little bit different, and so I don't know if like for you it's kind of like, yeah, well, this is happening in England, so it's not gonna.
Yeah.
Or not.
When I first heard about it, it was through Instagram, through some friends of mine, and just some other trans people I follow. And also because I'd seen a lot of more people recently, even on like the trans like subreddits and like the trans like Facebook groups, like asking people if they wanted like to play sports together, or make up teams and stuff. And then this come along, and I was just so excited. I felt seen. I felt like maybe I finally might have an opportunity to play a sport I love with people who could immediately understand me and not have to question any part of me or my identity, and I could just play without any of the like drama or the unnecessary nonsense. When I saw, yeah, it was in London, I was like, oh, that's like, I couldn't really afford to go, and I was like, I'm reaching, I would have loved to watch their first match. But I have been like supporting all their stuff like online and like looking at all their scores, and they released new merch recently, and their new kits look real cool. So yeah, like I've been super excited about it, and I think it's a great opportunity for growth, and honestly brought me back to like when I was in university. Like there is ironically no women's football team for Queen's University, so my friend and I were like really hedging our bets to should we put together a women's or a all inclusive team, because there is a men's one, and we were really considering it for a period of time in our second year, and then Maisie was like, oh well, I also do rugby, and the timings usually you have to choose just one sport, because Queens usually does all of their stuff like on a Wednesday afternoon or a Monday afternoon, so you really can't do more than one. It's very hard. So I was like, oh, we don't really have the time, so we kind of put it to the back burner. And there's still, as far as I'm aware, there still is the women's football team for Queen's University, which is insane to me. Like they're a Russell Group University, and the like the highest achieving in Northern Ireland or Mount Ireland. So it just doesn't make any sense. So it brought me back to that. I'm like, oh, there was an opportunity there I could have taken, and I'm annoyed that I didn't. So I'm very excited someone else has taken that and run with it, because I think it's an amazing space, and it's far too long coming.
Great. I agree.
Yeah, no.
It's kind of crazy as well, like just anecdotally, because I first thought of this project about 2 years ago, and at the time I didn't have any funding, so I just was like randomly putting out feelers, and I did get like a couple of people coming back to me, but I was kind of like, okay, I don't seem to know where to reach people, and I'm also not online, so it was kind of like all kinds of stuff, but I was kind of just like, okay, are we there? Am I like, is it just me and these 4 other people in the whole of the UK? Ouch.
That's the thing. Like that's what I was thinking, because I was saying, it's so nice to actually talk to someone about somebody that also is transmasc and like likes to / wants to play football like in modern day, because all of the trans people I know are just archetypes, like, and it's probably because of the way maybe I met them or the people I know them through, but they're just like arty types or they're music types, or they're gamers. And I'm also all those things, but I'm also the person who loves playing sports, and loves playing football, and yeah, it's a part of my identity that has like definitely been dead and buried for far too long, and I miss it. And the first time I was able to go swimming as a trans guy was in Belfast last springtime, and it was amazing. So Belfast put together its first, like, trans only swimming, and so we all of us were trans. We had trans mass people, trans femme people, and we all got to go swimming in the swimming pool that was completely shut. The whole like center was closed to only our group, so nobody could get to us at all, and nobody else knew about it apart from us. So like nobody, no haters would turn up at the doors or anything like that. You had to swiftly ask to get like the details where to go, and do it at the last Saturday or Sunday of every month. And so I was able to go that one time because I was away, then I moved back here, and it was like the first kind of step back into the person I used to be, and I was pretty top and everything, so I just wore like a rash guard and stuff, but I didn't get any funny looks, and it was never like didn't feel like uncomfortable, and I just got to be in a pool and just like float on the water for the first time. So I was like maybe 15 or young or even younger, and it was just so freeing and so wonderful, and there's just not enough stuff like that, and then to be able to play football then with like my coworkers and stuff, it feels like I'm getting a part of my identity back that I thought I genuinely lost, and it's just wonderful.
If one were to ask you from a trans perspective, what is it that you think is really important that one should be that one should be asking us for, or like that one should be considering why it is important that we are in sports, other than of course like the fact that because everybody should just have access to it, but like what is it that's important that you wish people were asking us about what it is that we need from sports spaces, if that makes sense?
Yeah. That's an interesting question. I feel like growing up, especially like from a UK perspective, like doing sports and competing and playing sports, even if it's during like break or lunch times, like in school, like it's all just kind of like a given. Like you expect kids to throw a ball around, or take part in like their local teams, or have Saturdays out, Saturday mornings to go to swimming or to learn different activities, stuff like that. Like I think it's just a given that kids just do that, and then as you grow, like kids learn their own kind of like tastes, and they don't have their own little opinions, and kind of grow into the human that they are, and embrace different aspects of personality. And I feel like while cis kids get to learn about their bodies and about their likes and loves and hates and dislikes, and experience the world for the first time, um, and their access to like sports and things they want to do, like changes a little bit with, obviously depending on like kind of their access needs and stuff like that. I feel like when it comes to like trans kids and then teenagers and now it's going to adulthood, we don't have like a linear path. Like before we can even consider playing on a single gendered team, we have to consider, you know, our thoughts, our feelings, how our body looks, what our body says to other people, never mind to ourselves, like our safety, like the fairness, because everybody, like especially like when you're talking to kids, like, you know, is it fair, like for you to do that in that space? It's, is it fair to compete with people that aren't like you or didn't grow up like you? Like you're putting so much pressure on people who are just finding out who they are, that you will have no real experience of other than when you're maybe a teenager. Like if you could imagine puberty going on for 20 years minimum for some people, and then trying to do things that you would have learned how to do when you were 10, 11, 12. Like, can you imagine how hard that is in your 20s, 30s, 40s? Like, being trans and having access to sports and wanting to play sports or take part in sports, it's not just like a basic need or a thing that, you know, we deserve to have because we're human beings. It's a part of a childhood we never really got to have. It's a part of maybe something that everybody should have access to and experience that some people forget about. And it's something that unifies a lot of people outside of gendered space or religious space, like I said before, or any kind of boundaries or binaries you might have. It's something that unites a lot of people, and it can be divisive and competitive, but it's something that I think as a kind of necessity to growth as well. It teaches you so much about yourself and about life when you're part of a team or doing an individual sport. There's so many skills and things that are easily transferable to like relationships and jobs and career paths. And I think by denying trans people that, you're denying them access to so much more than just a sport they like to play or compete in.
That's amazing.
Sports feels like cis people and straight people already have barriers, like you have to meet these markers, you have to be tested for this, you have to do a certain number of these and a certain number of these, and have to do this match, and you have to make it to this meet and this, that, and the other. Like, if cis and straight people can barely get there and they have a linear path of growth, what on earth? We don't even have what are you talking about? Why are you even considering us as competition? We have no funding, we have no support, we have nothing to offer but our natural talent, if there is any, and our genuine willingness and love of the sport we want to do. That's all it is. We just want to be able to do the sport we love. That's all it is. Well, why should we have any less opportunity than you do? Literally.
No.
There's no excuse.
And like just to speak of football as a microcosm, I'm always like struck by like, you realise that we made up this sport. Like, we made up these rules to sport. This sport is not like, it's not encoded in the stars.
No.
You're not gonna start burning and die if you shift it to accommodate people in some way. Like, it's made for people, and so if people can't access it in a particular way because you've created like a governing body that has decided it has the rules for who can play and who can't. It's very like it's just sometimes you're just like, we're talking about a made up sport, right?
Yeah, like we did this right. Yeah, no, like it feels like the irony of it all is that they would have said all this about women's sports, especially like women's football, and the fact that literally last week they had the highest number of people sit down live and in person to watch a women's football match, and the amount of money they probably made from that, I'm like, when you realise the money that you're losing by being discriminatory, you're gonna hit yourself, because if there's one thing cis white people in governing bodies and owners of football teams want more than anything under the sun, it is money, and they're losing it by the barrel loads.
Football is probably, I want to say cautiously, maybe the most watched sport in the world.
Yeah, I would say so.
It's like
maybe cricket up
maybe
there.
cricket, yeah. But like up there for sure.
Yeah.
As like, I sometimes I'm like, are you still playing it for the love of it? Because you don't seem to have a backbone related to like your own ethics in playing it. For example, going to Qatar and playing there. Like, which football team, like which national football team protested that and refused to go to Qatar? I don't think there were any.
No.
So, like, what backbone do you have for, like, even supporting, in men's football, what backbone do you have for even supporting, like, gay players coming out at that level? And versus, like, the fact that trans people, like, for example, the transmasculine match that happened in London, or, like, the fact that Truck was made by Lucy Clark, who's, like, who's a trans woman and who's been, like, building spaces for trans women to play, or that mermaids, I've been talking to people who work for mermaids who've been like creating opportunities for trans kids to play, like literally like, here is an individual trans kid who's come to me and asked me where can I play, and I'm making teams like, let this kid play, I'm coming to them and shaming them until they let this kid play. Like, that's genuine love for a sport. But just like the idea of like, oh, maybe trans people who are playing football love football more than like cis men do. we're playing like cis men at these high levels, where it's like, oh, you're constantly assuming that we want to get to your level, but maybe actually you should be begging to be invited into our spaces, because we're coming at it with an ethos where we're like, we are gonna play the sport no matter how many teams you refuse to let us into, no matter how often we've had the experience of like being treated as weird for wanting to be in a space, no matter what kind of backstory we've had around like before we were out when people were treating us strangely, like we're gonna try and build the opportunity for us to play.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I don't know, there's just like, this is not even a question, you can totally just like jump on it if you want. I'm just like, there's something very like I feel very, I'm trying to find a word that's not buoyed. It's a very funny word. Buoyed. I feel buoyed. Fuck it. I feel buoyed by the idea that we're fucking gonna keep playing. Like we're still playing. We're still here. In fact, we are more here than we were. Like the FA can make whatever rulings it wants, but it's like they can't really stop people from playing.
Yeah. No. Like I feel like I think what I've noticed now as I've grown up and like watched, like my sister would always sit down and watch like the World Cups, the Euros, the last couple of years and stuff, and the more I've sat and like been online around those times and since coming out and like diversifying like my online spaces and stuff as well, I find that my love for the sport is a lot of the times in spite of the sport and in spite of a lot of things about the sport and the love a lot of people have, especially cis white straight men in like England usually and Wales. The love they have for the sport is not love but a power hold, like a control. They use it as an excuse for their behavior. They use an excuse to act out, to be irrational, to be emotional, to let go of things that they would never ever do in their normal lives. They use it as an excuse to act how women quote unquote act all of the time, and they use it as a crutch, and it has led to an overwhelming barrage of violence, of drunken antics, of abuse towards minority groups and women, and it is inherently toxic and troubled before you even get to the players themselves and how the ethics of the game works, how the ethics of the FA works, everything went down with Qatar and everything that they were called out on by public bodies. And the love I have for the sport is inherently in spite of it and the problems it holds. And I think as a trans person who wants to play the sport or who still holds it dearly to my heart, I no longer see it and I no longer watch it and I no longer participate in the space I used to, because that space is not for me. It never was for me, and I personally want no part of it because it stands for everything that I've just said and all the wrongness that it holds. I want no part of it, and the things that are happening, the changes that are happening now, have been long coming, and I will support anybody who wants to make changes to what football has been for the last 100 years, because it's not just a sport. It's a violent, controlling, patriarchal mechanism. That's what it is.
It is. What do you think a trans ethos in football is, and like the reasons why actually maybe people should be listening more to trans people about what the sport should be, rather than like being like, oh, trans people should try and be worthy of our spaces. Why should it actually be the other way around? Like,
yeah. I feel like trans ethos in football in particular should revolve around just inclusivity and accessibility. Like, not everyone's going to have had top surgery or access to hormone treatment if that's what they want. Like, no one has to have medically transitioned or even socially transitioned. It should be for those who enjoy the sport, want to play the sport, and have the time to do so. And I feel like being trans and being queer you have this inherent, like there's just always like an inherent conversation that needs to be had with every single person you talk to of like, okay, so I need you to call me by this, and these are my pronouns, and these are my access needs, and I don't do well in these environments, and I need to have access to these kinds of bathrooms or these kinds of sober spaces, or because of the way we have dealt with being trans and being queer, and what society has put us through to make it out to this end. And I feel like people are scared of the conversations of getting things wrong, and football does a lot of things wrong, and teams do terribly, but do you stop supporting them? Like, has there ever been a time where you're like chose a sport or chose a team when you were a kid and they lost the league or they lost a match or they got downgraded or anything like that, and you've given up on them? Like, name one time you've given up on your local team, your favorite team. Why are human beings any different? Like, what mistakes do we have to make or have had to make that you've decided to quit on us? Like, no, give over. Like, stop making excuses. We're human beings too.
What is your favourite thing about football? Playing or potentially being an audience? I know you said that you don't really engage in it as an audience thing anymore, but
My favorite thing about football would honestly be just like playing it and cheering on my team while being on the pitch. Like, I also love cheering on the other team. Like, one of my favorite things when I was playing with like my colleagues at my old job was anytime they like had a good score or a great like pass or whatever, or a good literal attempt at getting the ball past me, like I would immediately compliment them. I love complimenting people. I love cheering people on. I love seeing people succeed, even if it means I lose. I love championing people, especially in sport. I feel like it breeds like great friendships and companionship, and playing football is one of my favorite ways to do that.
brilliant. Okay, this one's a little bit broad, and if you don't have an answer for it, it's fine. I'm just throwing it at you. I guess it's about a little bit like the potential to build a grassroots trans football space in, I guess, let's say Northern Ireland. Let's make it a really broad area. Like, maybe it could be like, where would be possibly the best potential place to do that? I don't know if it's Belfast or Derry. I'm not sure about any of the population numbers of Northern Ireland, so I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
And like, whether you think that the numbers might be there or the interest might be there, and how you might think about navigating support in some way, like where do you think that support might be, or if you think that support is there?
Yeah, no, there definitely is interest and support. I know last year, I think it was like in the run up to Pride, and some fundraising stuff. I think the Rainbow Project, which is a community, like queer community project based in Belfast, did a five-a-side like charity match where five queer trans people would play against five drag queens for money. I really, really wanted to go, but I ended up having to take care of like a family animal at that point in time. So I know there was good numbers for that and like a good crowd and stuff. And like them being able to do something similar in Belfast is definitely giving like loads of space in Belfast, and it probably would be probably best to do because that's you have the most trans and queer people probably congregated in and around Belfast. Especially a lot of like drag artists and stuff as well. I want to do something similar, so I would definitely probably focus in Belfast. And definitely ask the Rainbow Project's help. They're an amazing like grassroots kind of like community charity. And like they've helped me an awful lot as well since coming out. So there's definitely elements that you could definitely work in there. It's just getting the right people at the right time with the right kind of funding.
I think maybe with the like, again, with the like interest that seems to have just like exploded in the last like 2 months.
Literally.
It's crazy that it's actually been 2 months. I can't like I haven't actually had the ability to to take this through my system yet. It's literally just like existing on this big like yelling ball in my head right now. Bearing in mind some of the things that we've talked about, which are again the problematic and limited elements of football as it currently is, but also that a lot of grassroots initiatives are starting in a lot of places, and so there's a lot of there's a lot of growing interest in like a queering of football, if you will.
Yeah.
What we, again, kind of broad. Why do you think that other queer and trans people should be getting into football?
Oh, why should you be getting into football? I think, honestly, a lot of queer and trans people have a whole lot of like hurt and trauma around cis people and straight people, and to a lot of people the epitome of being cis and straight, especially if you're male and white, is football. And I feel like to reclaim the part of yourself that might have been hurt or like singled out by the patriarchy and the like the traumatic kind of elements around like those kind of communities that you were pushed out of or no longer really a part of. I feel like the best way to kind of, if you want to just like throw it back in their faces and be like, I don't need you, I don't need the football the way you see it, and I want to reclaim it for myself. I feel like it's the perfect way to do it. Like football is one of the easiest and most well known sports across the world. It is can be played anywhere at any time with anything, not necessarily even a ball or goalpost are needed. And I feel like queer trans people should embrace what it is to play a sport together. And football is the perfect sport for it, and reclaim something that cis people have had this kind of holdover for so long. It would be a delight as well as a kind of revolution for cis people to have to see us enjoy a sport that they have held close and controlled for so long. I think it would be just a lot of fun, and it's a good game to play. I'll be honest.
It's like, I'm like, actually, football is such a queer sport. Like, it is so adaptable to its environment.
Literally.
It's so fluid to what you need it to be. Like,
And it has survived through so much crap and so many like transitions. Like football as we know it now is insane compared to 100 years ago. Never mind before that. Like, are you joking? Like the type of ball we play with, the things we wear, the money put into the fields and the players and the coaches, the size of the stadiums that was televised in color and 4K and 3D. Are you joking me? We can watch it in cinema, watch it on rewind, record on your phone. It's insane. It's queer.
Sorry, we've named it as queer now.
You can't take it back.
Can't
Sorry,
touch
man.
it. If you touch it, you're part of the queer.
You got the cooties.
Got our
The
grubby little
cooties.
hands all over it. Just before we end, is there anything that that you really, really wish that we'd gotten into but didn't like find the space for, but you really do want to say or briefly talk about? You don't have to be brief, you can also be long. Or do you have sort of a final set of thoughts that you'd like to encapsulate at the end of all of this?
You've done a very, very good job of trying of like rounding the subject enough to have pinpointed questions that encompass both transness and football and just sports in general, and you did a really, really good job, and you should be very proud of yourself. Like, it's really hard to do. Like, I've done a couple of interviews like this, and they just ask you, and they're like, when did you know you were trans, and when did you come out, and how did that go? Like, this, because of its inherent like kind of like microcosm about football, like it gives life to trans people in a way that I have never been able to like talk about before. It makes me more than just a 2D experience, and I want to thank you for letting me like talk about things like this, because it's so rare for me and for like probably a lot of people in my community to be able to like do this. So thank you so much. I'm so glad you were able to come over as far as it was. You're welcome.
I'm glad.
Sorry I couldn't do more than that.
No, you bought me lunch. I'm happy. No, I think it's interesting because I was like, I want to chat about football. I have a feeling that if I haven't been able to chat about football in the way that I want to talk about it, then maybe other people haven't either. And actually, a lot of people have been like, "Oh, I've never talked about this before." I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness." I mean, not thank goodness that you haven't been able to talk about it.
Yeah, but also there's more than just me.
Yeah, like
Thank God, not alone.